In the previous video, I was going through the tools and commands down here in the UV Mapping Manager. This video, I'm just going to continue on from where I left off, and I'm going to pick up almost all of the other UV tools and commands. A couple of them, like interactive mapping here, I will cover in a separate video. First tools I want to cover are the selection tools up there, and then the move, scale and rotate tools. Hopefully you're familiar with those from regular Cinema 4D, but there are some sort of body paint specific options for them. So first up, I've got the live selection tool selected. I've just created a cube with 9 polygons on each of the 6 sides, and I've just applied a simple box mapping projection to it. So, you know, I can just sort of click and drag around like that and select the UV polygons. Obviously works in UV point mode. Can select in either the viewport or come over here and select in the 2D view. Now let's have a look at the options. First one is the radius. So if you click, you can see the circle there. Obviously you get that in the 2D view. You can increase the size of the radius, and the way I usually do it is to hold the left mouse button down and just spin the mouse wheel in and out, and that also works over here in the 2D view as well. The other way to increase it is down here, and you can see what the radius is. It's 29. Is you click on the little spinner triangles down there and just drag up or down. If you hold the shift key down and drag, it goes in units of 10. That's a new option, I think, in 11.5. So if you're running an earlier version, you won't get that. So if you release the shift key, just goes up in units of 1. But I normally just do it by holding down the left mouse button and spinning the mouse wheel. Now these other couple of options, one thing to be careful of, even though I've got the live selection tool selected there, some of these other options, like the magnet, that's for the move tool, a little bit confusing. So, you know, if I just quickly go over to the move tool, I've still got these selection tool options there. So just be careful of that. Not all of the options are applicable for the live selection, move, scale and rotate tools. Okay, back to the selection tools. Let's have a look at this tolerant option, and basically works when you've got one of the other selection modes like the rectangle selection tool and working in UV polygon mode or regular polygon mode. So if I just sort of drag out to deselect, watch what happens if I drag out a selection like that in the 2D view. I get all of those UVs selected. And if I just drag out to deselect, if I turn the option off, disable it, do the same selection again, I don't get those outer ones. To get the outer ones, I've got to fully surround them with my rectangle selection. So that tolerant selection option allows you to sort of go over them partially, and as long as they're sort of being touched or inside the rectangle, they get selected. Works in the viewport as well. So just those ones there, I get that entire side there like that. Visible elements, pretty straightforward. I'll just come back to the regular live selection tool, click off to deselect. If I click on the top UVs there, I only get the visible ones. Okay, click off to deselect, disable only visible elements. If I sort of click again, I'll get some UVs, some of the hidden ones also being selected. You should be familiar with that from regular Cinema 4D So that's basically all of the options for the live selection tool. There's just a couple of other selection tools. You've seen the rectangle selection. There's a sort of lasso mode where you can sort of draw out freehand like that, make a selection. There's a polyline one, very handy, so you can sort of click, drag out lines like that, back like that, click where you started, just to close it. So that's all of the selection tools and all of their options. Next up is the move tool. Okay, so I'll select that, and you can actually use it to make a selection of one UV polygon or one UV point. So I'll just sort of click on a UV in the 2D texture view, and then if I click again, hold the mouse button down, I can just sort of move that UV out the way. So just click on another one, click, and then click again, hold the mouse button down, just like that, drag it out of the way. So just you can use it to sort of quickly edit things. Also obviously works in UV point mode. Click on a UV point there, and then click again and drag that UV point. So you don't need to sort of use the live selection tool. If you're just going to be sort of clicking on one thing at a time, you know, you don't need to get the live selection tool, select one, come back to the move tool, move that. You can just click with the move tool and just sort of quickly do a little bit of editing. Now if I come back to UV polygon mode, you can actually click in the viewport. So I'm just clicking and selecting UVs there. You can click again and drag, and watch what happens. The UV is moving around. I find it very, very hard to control things and a little bit disconcerting because it's sort of going the opposite way of where I'm dragging. So I never do that. I always do the dragging in the 2D view. You get a lot more control over things. Okay, so but you can actually do it. Now let's go through some of the options. So I'll just sort of restore things. So just before I started recording the video, I clicked on the Store UV button. So I'll just do a Restore UV command like that. And obviously the Move tool can be used in regular point, edge, or polygon modes. Okay, now let's have a look at some of the options down here. The selection ones are only for the selection tools. I'll come to the magnet option because you can sort of have a magnet mode for the move tool. I'll come to that a little bit later on. So let's have a look at these ones here. Keep face neighbors. I'll just leave it off for the moment, and I'll select some UV polygons. Now what I'm going to do is press the space bar, and when you press the space bar in Cinema 4D and Body Paint, it will toggle back to the live selection tool. So if I press the space bar like that, okay, I've got the live selection tool. I'm going to select some UV polygons like that, press the space bar, it toggles back to the last used tool, and in this particular case it was the move tool. Okay, and then I'm just going to drag these guys out of the sort of texture map area. Okay, so I've got keep face neighbors off at the moment. Let's just undo. Now this time I'll turn the option on and watch what happens. Okay, it's maintaining that connection with the, you know, the UV polygons either side. Just undo. The option is meaningless in UV point mode, so I'll go into UV point mode and I'll even turn the option off. I'll get the rectangle selection tool, select those ones there, press the space bar to toggle back to the move tool, and just drag. In point mode it always maintains the connection, so the keep face neighbors option is only for UV polygon mode. Okay, restore UV just to get things back. The clip UV coordinates option, and then in brackets 0, 1. The 0, 1 is just referring to the sort of coordinate system. Remember at the start we were talking about the UV coordinate system, so there's the texture map and the coordinates up here, you know, 0, 0, and then down there 1, 1. That's what that 0 and 1 is referring to. So if you enable that option, the program won't allow you to take your UV points or polygons outside of the texture map area. So I'll put it on and then watch what happens. I get to the side, it won't let me go any further down there. Alright, so let's just do it in UV polygon mode. Same ones again. Okay, I get to the edge, release, and they get sort of put there on the side. So that's what that option does. Not one that